Welcome to Through a Glass Darkly Radio on United Public Radio. The intro music was Mark of the Doomslayer by Karl at White Bat Audio. And tonight I have an amazing guest who is going to give us a full update on the machinations of disclosure in Washington, D.C. right now. It's like watching The Empire Strikes Back, I think, every year around this time, but we'll see. Steve is much more optimistic than I am. But Stephen Bassett has spoken to audiences in 20 countries about the political implications of the UAP-ET phenomena and disclosure, the formal confirmation by heads of state of an extraterrestrial presence engaging the human race. He is co-founder of the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance and executive director of Paradigm Research Group, a 501c3 nonprofit providing education, consulting, analysis, and political activism for the post-disclosure world. His advocacy work has been well covered by national and international media, including CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, Washington Post, and the New York Times. Bassett has appeared in many documentary films, and his lectures and interviews are well represented on YouTube. In 2013, PRG organized and conducted a citizen hearing on disclosure at the National Press Club in Washington. In November of 2014, PRG launched a 2-year political initiative out of Washington, D.C. that injected the ET issue into the 2016 presidential campaign. In December 2023, Steve co-founded the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance in Los Angeles, a new media-centric organization aiming to align those working within the UAP-ET research arena with writers, directors, producers working across every facet of the global entertainment industry. PRG recently launched an activist project, Shift Storm, seeking UAP hearings as soon as possible before the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence. Steve, welcome, my friend.
Good to be with you again, Sean, as always.
All right. So I feel like there's all these negative Nancys on UFO Twitter who have been saying that the UAP Act is dead. It's been taken out of the National Defense Authorization Act. But I think Mike Rounds has been saying, no, it's not dead yet. We're still negotiating. Based on your intel, what is the current status of what is going on right now?
It's like trying to find what's the current status of funding the United States government, which they sort of have to do every year. You know, what's the current status? Well, it's sort of funded for a couple of weeks, and then they're going to vote again, and who knows? They may fund it, they may not fund it. Could be a total collapse of the economy, et cetera, et cetera. It's like that. This is not the way government is supposed to run. Just mentioning that. Let me get my lighting here. But nevertheless, that's the way it is these days. Let's hope it gets better. Look.
All right. I'm going to flash various comments across the screen. Don't worry. If it requires a response from you, I will let you know. Don't get distracted. I'm just going
to make sure you include the obscene ones. I want those for sure.
Yeah, exactly. YouTube loves those.
Look, this is one of the most important pieces of legislation in history. And we've had a lot of pretty important legislation. This is a big deal. It was slated to go into the National Defense Authorization Act, which is probably the most important act that we pass every year, even more important than the funding, because what good is funding if your country is a giant pile of nuclear ash, right? So what goes into the bill, the complexity of the NDAA, the complexity of the process is extraordinary. It is intentionally that way because the founders, they didn't want laws to be too easily passed. Plus, the rules have changed over the years to make it not too easy to pass laws, because that way you could get a situation where there's a lot of imbalance of power and they're just passing laws like this and creating all kinds of havoc. So it's difficult.
Kind of like executive orders, sort of.
Yeah, not executive orders. So over the years, though, additional rules have been added here and there to make it even harder. Unfortunately, that was less in the interest of responsible legislation and more in the interest of partisan control. And then, on top of that, our whole political system started to break down. and become dysfunctional, which is also not good. There are two major elements of that dysfunction. There are many, but the two big ones are, one, a court ruling called Citizen United made money speech.
Right.
And
Corporations can,
yeah,
heavily influence the political process. Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
Well, not just corporations. If you're worth $200 billion, anybody out there with that kind of money, you could give $100 million, $200 million to a campaign, and you wouldn't miss it. Corporations, same thing. So essentially, they allowed massive funds to be able to go into campaigns. Okay. Well, what's the problem? Okay. Well, look, if you're a candidate, you have to raise that money. Right? Both candidates are competing to raise that money. And so naturally, over time, the amount of money needed, you just get a seat in the House on a contested race, could be $5, $8, $10 million. Senate, 25, 30, 40, $50 million. And the presidential race now runs somewhere in the range of about $2 billion. And all of that has to be raised every election cycle by going to the people and saying, we need your money so we can win, right, and represent you. So guess what? What happens is you have people who spend more time trying to raise money than actually governing, assuming they get to govern. Worse, they have obligations to the entities that give them this money. They're under enormous pressure. It's an awful process. And so that is the first major problem. All right. Oh, well, actually, there's another aspect to that. And that is the fact that the people who are thoughtful, well-educated, thoughtful, very much interested in serving and representing the public, people like that don't want to go through this. Yeah. They may not have the personality for it. They don't have the skills for it, right? Pandering, pleading, begging, endlessly campaigning for money. And so they don't run. And so right there, you've got a problem. Then the second part of the problem is...
Well, the type of person it takes to become the king is not the same type of person that can be a wise king, basically.
Yeah, except this is an election instead of being born to it. But you're right.
Right.
And then over the years, not surprisingly, the people who are willing to go through this are of a certain type. And so what has happened over the last 20, 30 years is the United States Congress has slowly accumulated a certain number of individuals who have no business leading anybody anywhere, managing anything anywhere, and are a huge liability to the nation's welfare. Now, the Congress can handle a certain amount of that, just like a ship can handle a certain amount of leaks, but too many leaks, it sinks. And so that is a major problem. And on top of that, we have the Electoral College, which is also essentially undermining democracy. So the effect of that is we have an extremely dysfunctional country right now. And so that extends to the creation of laws. And so laws are becoming even more difficult, more complicated, more messy. So with that as preference, the situation this time around, where we are right now, is that I'll cover part of this. Last year, one of the most powerful men in all of Congress, in the country, Senate Majority Leader Schumer, suddenly announced 35 days after David Grush came forward and told us about non-human tech, non-human bodies within USAPs. He introduced what would amount to the UAP Disclosure Act, the whole shebang, right? The whole thing. It's all you need. The previous three legislations or tranches were helpful, but this was it. This was the full package, the whole Monty. And it had everything in it, including strikingly eminent domain. And that was a huge shock. Everybody got quite excited, including me. And it went into the way it was put forward in this very complex process. It went into the Senate bill and was passed by the Senate. We all know that the House is not the Senate, and the House, members of the House and some Senate members in conference changed the bill before it was resubmitted back for vote in the House and Senate the final time. In other words, the final language was changed and the powers of that bill were taken out. So it was basically, we call it gutted, but the essence of the bill remained, which is important. And so it was passed without the powers, without eminent domain, without a UAP review board, subpoena power, things like that. People were not happy. They were angry, which is good. Social media pushed back. That is good. But it didn't pass. Okay. And so that brings us to this year. What is going to happen this year? I felt, and many did, that simply trying to put that bill in last time, coupled with the final bill, which was signed by the president, was more than enough to justify Mark Warner, the Senate Intel chairman of that committee, to get the witnesses up on the Hill. And I'm not talking 2 or 3. I'm talking 20, at least 20 David Grushes, 20 people who have either actively have substantial careers or retired from substantial careers, security clearances, the whole resume, the whole 9 yards. They are ready to testify. More than 20 have been ready for some time. They just need a ticket to Washington, a hotel room, and when to be in the Senate committee room. And but he didn't do it. Now, to be fair to Mark Warner, the campaign started long before that bill was signed in December. Long before that, I get it. But on October the 7th of last year, something awful happened, which then led to even more awful things happening. And so we have been since October of last year, we're almost now 10 months into it, in a ramp up, which could be major war in the Middle East. We've always had a potential escalating war or expanding war in Ukraine and Russia. And so let's face it, these are very difficult times, national security wise.
Not to mention too that the entire, like, the nature of warfare has changed with drone technology. Like, if we were to get involved, our current standing armed forces, the casualty rates would be far higher than they were during the Gulf War, which leads to the next shoe to drop. Is, I think if any administration went into a draft situation, they would experience significant pressure from both the left and the right this time. It ain't going to be like Vietnam where it's kind of one-sided. It's going to be significant pressure from both sides.
There is a very long list of things that would be a problem if either of these two hots, and then there's the third one, which is Taiwan and Asia.
Oh, yeah.
The Japanese fired on some Russian jets, I'm assuming warning shots, because they're in their airspace. Chinese ships are circling Taiwan. So who can blame Warner, given those things, very, very active and getting worse during the end of last year, to say this is not the time to try to conduct a hearing that will have implications of that magnitude. Let's hold off and see what happens. Well, it just got worse, continued to get worse.
Yeah, Nasrallah, it may, I think, is gone. Like the head of the long-standing head of Hezbollah, the Israelis took him out.
That's just the last couple of days. I'm just saying,
right.
Since October,
that's big though. That guy's been around forever. That's big, and that's very escalatory with the Iranians. But
so Warner did not pull the trigger on the hearings. I get that, and eventually it was simply out of the question that hearing, the hearing that we must have, was going to happen before the election. All right. Even the House, I think, recognized that. And they'd wanted to have a second hearing for some time. And so that meant that whatever was going to happen was going to be after the election. I totally understand that. I totally get that. Now, simultaneous with this decision process, okay, the Schumer stepped forward and did something almost as dramatic as he did last year. I didn't even see this coming. Actually, it wasn't Schumer, it was Rounds. And Rounds gave either a statement or an interview in which he stated, we're resubmitting the UAP Disclosure Act. The whole thing.
Good.
We're going to resubmit it again, the one that you gutted last year. And when I read it, It was basically exactly the same with a few slight differences, not much at all. And not only was it the entire bill with all the powers and subpoena and eminent domain, but at the very end, it had a little repeal section that said, this bill, once signed, repeals the last one last year. So basically they're saying, yeah, we're going to get rid of that. We're going to replace it with this. This isn't an add-on. This is a replacement. That is an extremely powerful statement to the Department of Defense, but it is doubly powerful because obviously, just like Garcia, when he introduced a portion of that bill, the review panel, and as a, I don't know, just for the hell of it, piece of legislation into the House that had no chance whatsoever, and it didn't go anywhere. Just like what Garcia did, this was the full version of that, and both of these submissions of legislation occurred after the Aero study report signed by Sean Patrick had been publicized, saying that we've studied all the accounts back to 1947, right? It hardly took any time at all. It didn't cost anything. And we've discovered that there's really no indication whatsoever of extraterrestrial presence. Total lie, completely bogus, an absolute disgrace to the department.
Well, it depends. It depends, right? There's been, if you parse the language and what all the whistleblowers have said, and even what Aero has said, they said there's no evidence of an extraterrestrial presence, but they didn't say anything about non-human intelligences that are already here.
Actually, I think I'm going to disagree there. I think they did refer to non-human, and they referred to craft, any craft project being done. It was an absolute. They threw oil on this water.
So they even said non-human craft.
I'm pretty sure the report was clear. There's really nothing here that you need to be concerned about. And then Sean Patrick left he'd already quit, but he finally left his position and went on to a very nice position. I think somewhere, energy or whatever. He signed this bill. Look, it's going to that is going to follow him the rest of his life unless he reverses course and comes back. But the pressure,
the J. Allen Hynek shuffle, right?
He could have been a J. Allen Hynek. He still can be, but right now he is the Edward Condon of the 24th.
Yeah, he's Aero's a counterintelligence operation.
So, so that was a clear message to the Congress and everyone else that the Senate's not buying that. Schumer and Round, we don't buy it. We're not going to give up, and that's extremely powerful. So I'm feeling very good about that overall. Okay, so now where are we now? Where are we now is this. There will be no hearing until after the election. That is guaranteed.
Isn't it scheduled for November 13th, tentatively?
There will be at least one hearing after the election, and that's already been scheduled by the House, Nancy Mace. Mm-hmm. And we know that they're trying to get more than 3 witnesses this time. They're going to try to do what will amount to a sort of, not mini, but a pre-game hearing, right, to the ultimate hearing that has to be before the Intel Committee. Whatever they put together, which I think is going to be important, and I sure as hell hope to be in the room for that. I think Admiral Gallaudet has just indicated he might be a witness, which is pretty substantial. It will not be at the level necessary for a hearing, but it will certainly put the House more in play and raise their profile and certainly add fuel to the disclosure movement. All right, so that's scheduled. Meanwhile, Gillibrand indicated that she's going to hold something after the election. It might just be a briefing where she brings the new Aero director forward. It might be a hearing under oath, and there may be some witnesses we don't know, but that will be after, again, the election. Still not sufficient to end the truth embargo. So we know that. All right, now that then leaves the matter in the hands of Mark Warner, as I've said for months and months and months. He is the man of the hour. He is the one person in the best position to end the truth embargo, with the exception of the president, who could do it at any time. But I assure you, an independent effort by the president to just do it without the lead up would not go well. And so I'm going to make Mark Warner.
I mean, this year has very weird circumstances, right? So, given the change in candidates at the last minute, has I don't want to speculate, but it has an odd feel to it. I've heard the word soft coup, things like that. It just, He wouldn't have the gravitas to put it forward, given all this.
Well, actually, that could be an asset. Let me explain. I mean, as I said,
I want to hear this.
This is a very complicated situation. All right.
Yeah.
And so it's Warner. The history. One of the most important matters in all of human history rests on the shoulders of Senator Mark Warner. That's just the way it came down. If he holds the hearing and brings 20 witnesses up there for about a week, 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, everyone with high security clearances, everyone like David Grush, some of them firsthand without question, meaning they actually worked on the damn craft, accompanied by whatever video evidence, whatever else they want to put in, and they could find lots if they wanted, it will blow the truth embargo up and set the stage for a president to then come forward and in a responsive way, not in a, oh, I'm getting the truth out on this. No, in a responsive way, which is the way to do it. And we get disclosure. So there's 3 ways this can happen.
Mm-hmm.
This is what to look for. First, Warner can call for the hearing very shortly after the election is over. Now, there are a number of advantages to this. First and foremost, after November the 5th, we know who's in Congress. Everybody knows who won and everybody knows who lost. And nobody is running again for office for another 2 years. So you have to start campaigning the next day, practically, in order to raise those millions of dollars to win your election. Right. So that takes the political temperature, the partisanship temperature way, way, way down. And that's a good thing. That makes it a much more conducive environment to hold a nonpartisan hearing on this issue in front of the Senate. So that's good. All right. The second aspect of it is if they hold the hearing shortly after the election, like same time, 13, 14, 15 November, and they get it done, then the disclosure president will be Biden. Now, the advantage of that is that President Biden's career is over. He's not going to be president again. He's not going to run for election. He's not going to be the leader of the party. He's retiring. And so he's handled this incredible historical legacy on the way out the door. And then, of course, the new Congress and the new president will be, of course, the political institutions that will start to manage the post-disclosure era, which historians have been talking about for another 1,000 or 2,000 years. And so that kind of has a certain balance to it. It's kind of comfortable. I like it. I think it is definitely the way to go. And so that is his first choice. His second option is to wait until after the new Congress takes over in January, I think the 3rd. All right. Again, at that point, the nice aspect is we know who is elected. They're already now in place.
God help us. Either way, God help.
Another advantage is that so that new Congress will be directly involved in the final act. Whatever other hearings take place, whatever's going on, all of the members of Congress are sitting members. They're going to remain in office for at least 2 years, and they're going to be involved in this historical process. So that legacy kind of rubs off on all of them, both parties. That's kind of an asset like that. All right, and then when there is another possibility embedded in that option, and that is if you wait long enough in that period between January 3 and January 20, the inauguration, when the hearing is over and the world is on fire and the press is on fire and everybody's waiting, oh, well, what's the president going to say? You just take a beat, day or two or whatever, and then boom, you have the inauguration, and it's the new president that responds to that hearing. It is the new president, probably won't take long, that comes forward and says, yeah, I've made inquiries, talked to the top people, and yeah, we have non-human intelligence here. We're not alone, and we're going to get this information out to you. Probably the UAP Disclosure Act could be
Well, you would think it would also shift the focus on all these global problems we have on something bigger than all of us, right? It would shift the focus from tensions over domestic politics. It would shift the focus from the war in Ukraine, the war in Gaza, and the potential like China's year to be ready. Its deadline to be ready for a Taiwan invasion is next year. It's 2025, officially stated year that their military said they're going to be ready. So if you could shift the focus of that to disclosure, I mean, I would think that would be a masterstroke. It'd be an obvious thing for American politicians to do, but they just don't seem to get it. I don't know.
You're in the ballpark. Let me rephrase it. Okay. We don't want it to shift the focus. We want it to change perspective and worldview so we could increase the focus on these things. We don't want to take the focus away from a potential nuclear war emerging out of Europe.
Focus is the wrong word. Yeah, I think that's
we want to shift the perspective so that we can actually address these issues and resolve them before they create a calamity. All right. And so the second choice has the advantage of also giving that legacy to the new president. And so it'll be the new president who is going to serve for the next 4 years, who gets that huge legacy and all the political capital that comes with it. And political capital is an incredibly important resource for the leader of the country, and when dealing with foreign countries and so forth. So that is the advantage of the second choice, the Senate hearing between January 3, January 20. Now, the third option, which is the least to me advisable, the first was the best, second was not quite that good. The third is the least, and that is holding the hearing after the inauguration. Now, this gets complicated again because if the Republicans,
you're going to have bigger problems you're going to have bigger problems at that point.
Well, I don't know about bigger problems. You're going to have a new administration, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Whoever is elected, and but it's complicated because the Republicans may have won the Senate. Now, if the Republicans have won the Senate, then they now control the Senate, and Marco Rubio is the chairman. So now it's his call, right? And that's true for the second option, I should mention. The second option could be complicated if Marco Rubio takes over as chairman. I happen to think that Senator Rubio would proceed with the hearing. I think that he's down on that as well. But again, if after the inauguration you have a new president and you might have a Republican Senate or whatever, and that's the third option. And they might hold that, I don't know, middle of February. And if they do that, you could again have the UAP Disclosure Act submitted again as a standalone bill. But again, you don't know what the Senate and House are going to be like, right? They might be more or less favorable, but whatever. You could have disclosure in February, late February of 2025. These are the three options most likely in my view. The fourth one is to hold it off.
Kick it down the curb. Right. Kick the can down the curb. Right.
That would be that absolute worst option and could be catastrophic. The third option is also very risky, and here is why. I am concerned we will not make it to February, okay? Late February, early March, because the situation is so dire and so unpredictable that we could have a calamity. Now, even if it's not nuclear war, it could be something so awful that everything is going to have to be put on the back burner. And then we go forward deeper into 2025 with increasing risk of, again, even worse happening. And so this is a situation where you have to get it done. You cannot wait. You've got to get it done. And not too many people are talking this way. Certainly no members of Congress are talking this way. The journalists are not talking this way. I understand that. But I'm an activist, and I can talk this way. As an activist, I can say anything I want, anytime I want, and I don't give a damn who likes it or doesn't like it. Right? I don't get a salary from a news entity. I'm not being elected by the voters. In fact, I don't get a salary at all. Okay, and so I can see this, and this is extremely important. So this is where.
By the way, I've been saying it too. Like they need to disclose before there's nothing. Before there's a polity not to disclose to, right?
Or before something awful happens.
Yeah, or we're in a major war with somebody, or
Absolutely.
multiple wars, or whatever, right?
So that
There's
is
so
the
many. Yeah.
situation. That's the situation right now. And that's the basic concept of the situation. Now I can. Let me just quickly add this. Uh, there was some confusion because of the complexity of what happened to the second UAP Disclosure Act. And as near as I understand it, I'm on the front line of this, but I'm not behind the lines. I have some contacts who are behind the lines, but I'm on the front line. I'm kind of with you, but I'm close, right? I'm closer to the TV than some people sitting, back on the couch. So this bill, the second UAP Disclosure Act, was not submitted in the same way the first one was. It was through a different process. In fact, they called it an amendment. The other one was called an act. And as far as I know, the nature of this submission made it vulnerable to essentially being blocked by a filibuster vote by a single senator. I think it had to be either ranking or chairman of one or a couple of committees. And so that made it vulnerable. The word got out that the bill was being blocked. And the word that got out on the internet was that Rand Paul had said, "I'm going to block the bill," or did block the bill.
Yeah, which is odd. Why would Rand Paul want it? Like, he's like a like, I don't get it.
But no, actually, he's done that before. But
does he have like a bunch of contractors, defense contractors in his state?
Probably not. But again, Ron Powell is a independent. He's kind of a rogue member of Congress. He does things that are unpredictable. No big deal. I'm not throwing shade on him, but I had received some information and I thought it was confirmed, and so I joined in the social media response, and I encourage people to Twitter tag him, because he has a Twitter account at Senator Rand Paul. And let them know that we weren't happy about that. And then I came to learn that no, that was actually incorrect. Where it stands now, as far as I know, is that the bill is not going to make it in the NDAA because it did not get submitted in time, which would be a mistake. All right, so let's think about this. Rounds indicates that they're putting this bill in, and then they don't get it in on time. Now, look, I would not be surprised if that statement is true. I would be very surprised if it was a mistake. But again, until they come forward, we don't know for sure. However, another rumor, and I'm emphasizing rumor here, has emerged. I haven't had substantiated it, that it wasn't Rand Paul that either blocked or was threatening to block the bill. It was Mitch McConnell. Now, that is a different matter altogether. If McConnell blocks the bill, there's no negotiating around that. That's the ball game. If Brand had done it, well, it'd be a question of, Rand Paul, look, what do you need? What's going on? What's your problem? But not Mitch McConnell. And so if that is true, it makes some sense. Because if Mitch McConnell had made it clear to Rounds and Schumer that I'm going to block it, you can submit it, I'm blocking it, right? Or rather, it's not going to get in. They would know that there's no way around that. And so in order to avoid that confrontation, which would be distracting and get a lot of people angry and upset this close to the election, they might have decided, let's avoid that by just not submitting it in time so that it's not even going to be in the bill, thus eliminating that issue altogether. Now, this is a theory. I'm waiting to learn more. It has a lot of logic to it, because it's hard for me to imagine that they dropped the ball over at Mike Rounds' office and somebody was did no.
So if they don't submit it, how do they legislate on
it? It won't be in the bill. This is not in, right? At this point, it's not in the bill. It's not going to be voted on. It's too late. All right, it didn't show up. The race started. You can't go. So that's where that's at. And that's the status.
So what's the strategy behind not submitting it at all?
Well, that's what I was pointing out. If the rumor that McConnell was in fact the one that was threatening to block the bill, not Rand Paul. McConnell is not Rand Paul, and so they would have known that he's going. If he blocks it, It's not going anywhere. We're not going to be able to convince him otherwise. We're not going to be able to negotiate it. It's dead. And so rather than have that all happen, right, and everybody all upset, and shifting the focus away from the campaign, which is what, only weeks away, it's possible they deliberately did not submit the bill in time in order to avoid that. Now, I'm looking forward to learning more. We shall see. So, but what's most important here, as I said earlier, is the very fact that Rounds came forward and said we're resubmitting, and that they actually posted, because I have the copy of it. They posted the quote bill again on the Senate site for all to read. I don't know if it's still up there. That was an extremely important statement being made by Rounds and Schumer and Warner. One, we're not going to let up on this. We're going to get this act passed eventually, Mr. DOD. And two, we don't believe the Arrow study report. Okay, sorry, nice try. You lose. Here's some nice parting gifts. Go home. Don't forget to pay your taxes on the gifts. So this is what, because I'm on the front line, I see these kinds of things. The regular public, they don't see that. They just, it didn't happen. What's going on? But I'm close enough to the game to be able to see a little more and be able to assess what the strategy might be. And so, again, they've sent a very clear message so that after the election, right, anything is possible. They could resubmit the bill as a standalone. They could hold the hearing. There's a number of things they can do. But the most important thing your audience needs to know is that the disclosure activist process is now absolutely irreversible. It cannot be stopped, at least in terms of domestic policy. A nuclear war, invasion of Taiwan, yeah, that'll do it. And a few other things of that magnitude could put it on hold. But short of that, it's absolutely irreversible, and disclosure is inevitable.
Well, how's it going to happen, though, if the government doesn't?
How is it going to happen?
Yeah.
No, I'm simply saying that barring anything dramatic, like I just mentioned, the bill will be eventually submitted. It'll be submitted standalone. It'll get passed. And then the hearing, it can be held at any time. It doesn't have to wait for the bill to be passed. You can have the hearing and then pass the bill. If you have a hearing, it makes it easier to pass the bill. If you pass the bill, it makes it easier to have the hearing. Both of those things are going to happen, at which point the president is going to be able to walk out and end the truth embargo. Bingo, that's it. They can't stop.
Yeah, I think these yahoos need to start preparing for how they're going to prevent these sites from being raided after the government falls. I hope they have good security for that. I hope they have good security for our nuclear stockpile too, because that's where we're heading. Like if these guys like keep kicking the can down the road.
Disclosure with a capital D, which I defined as the confirmation event way 24 years ago, as the prize for the entire movement, is just that. It's the confirmation. The bringing out of information under a UAP Disclosure Act will start quickly, very early, but it will continue for years. And I assure you that the location of the underground bases where the UAP craft are will not be one of the early pieces of information.
I don't think they're ever going to be. I mean, we should never expect that to be disclosed. But what I'm saying is just by the sheer obstinacy to even just admit that we're not alone or that we may or may not have agreements with these species, who knows, right? Will lead to far worse problems on the back end when, I think we need this. I think this is like a silver bullet. This is a silver bullet to, kind of reshift the focus of what humanity is all about. Unite, it's not going to be unicorns and rainbows, but it will at least calm things globally and force people to change their perspectives so that we're not blowing our money on, wars that are destroying people's lives, all around the world. Instead, maybe we'll be able to invest our resources on kind of looking outward instead of these kind of internecine struggles among human beings. It's very frustrating. And I don't understand why I do understand why a lot of these political leaders don't have this insight or foresight, but I just I think people are going to be needing to manage their affairs a little bit more actively in the next coming months.
What you're describing is a worldview change brought on by the biggest paradigm shift in history.
Right.
That's another way to put it. And of course, that is the whole mission of Danny Sheehan and the New Paradigm Institute. Danny Sheehan had been trying to get the New Paradigm Institute underway for a long time, but it's a big deal and it requires significant funding. Recently, a very insightful person provided that substantial amount of initial funding that allowed him to launch it. And so the New Paradigm Institute is up and going. It needs to raise millions more, y'all rich people out there that want to do good and change the world. And if you like, I can actually share I share the page with you, the little top page of the New Paradigm Institute? Sure. Hang on, let me do that for you. It is, where'd it go? There it is. Okay. So this is the front page of the New Paradigm Institute. All right. And the New Paradigm Institute it was created primarily to deal with the post-disclosure world. It's going to be the first, I think, and foremost think tank in the post-disclosure world, but we're not there yet. And so a lot of what it's doing now is closing out the pre-disclosure world. And it has all kinds of projects, and one of which is coming up is, let's see, the Global Disclosure Day. Now, I created World Disclosure Day July 8th, many, many years ago. Didn't get a lot of press, but the concept was to have a day that one would think about disclosure. Global Disclosure Day is a little different. It is a day for people to discuss about disclosure, think about it. There's going to be many speakers, including myself, and you can get the details by going here, clicking on that link. And it's going to be October the 20th. It's going to go on for a good while. And it'll be an online discussion and presentations and so forth, all about disclosure. And that is capital D disclosure, the confirmation that must come from the president, as well as small d disclosure, the getting out of the information that everybody will expect after we have had that confirmation, and certainly after a law is passed requiring that information with or without confirmation. They're also doing a petition to the UN, and they've set up they're setting up courses online. And yesterday, or I think yesterday, day before yesterday, it was yesterday, they held on the Yale campus what may be the first teach-in since the Vietnam War years. When the idea of a teach-in became a thing, because so many college professors and so forth were so upset about the Vietnam War that they wanted their colleges to invite and under the sanction of the college to come in and speak to faculty and students. And so you had all these teach-ins going around the country where activists were turning up and talking to faculty and students about why the Vietnam War should end. And this was a big deal. Now, after the war was over, I just don't recall hearing about a teach-in about anything. Maybe there has been, but now we've had one for the first time on this issue. And Danny Sheehan and some other speakers presented to students and faculty of Yale University on the campus. I believe it was the day before yesterday. So there's going to be more. There's 3 other colleges signed up. I'm hoping we can get one teach-in at least one of the schools in Washington area, either American University, Georgetown, University of Maryland, or Howard.
Who's signed up right now?
I think Purdue is one, and the other 2 I'm not sure of, but it may be listed on the website. And again, this is the newparadigminstitute.org website. It is a 501c3 nonprofit, and it is going to help change the world. And for those very wealthy people out there that want to change the world and want to do good, like some of the ones that gave candidates $5, $10, $15 million, or political parties $50 million to win an election, which they sometimes don't win, in other words, they lose. In other words, all that money basically has just been thrown down the drain. If you want to do something with some lasting impact, consider giving $1, $2, $5, $10 million to the New Paradigm Institute. It's fully tax deductible, and it's going to change the world. And so that is something else that is going on right now that I wanted to bring to your attention.
All right. Have you tried? You should make sure you get Stanford on there. That's where the Soul Foundation, I think that their next event is on the 20th of November.
Oh, I'm sure it's a candidate without question. I have no doubt that it's a candidate.
Yeah. Yeah. Although the Soul Foundation's next thing, it's not going to be at Stanford. It's going to be in San Francisco, but I thought I'd throw that in there.
Yeah, but Stanford is the home of Gary Nolan. Gary Nolan started the Soul Foundation. So Stanford, whether it likes it or not, it is a very significant node in the end of the truth embargo. And I would be great if dozens and dozens of Stanford professors, got behind Gary Nolan. But unfortunately, not many people, many academics have the kind of courage that Dr. Nolan has. We need more Dr. Nolans.
100%. Although I think Francis here spelled Gary's name wrong. It's got 2 R's.
2 R's.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Just give him a hard time. It's okay.
He's not the kind of guy that would be upset by that. Trust me.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a good guy. Okay. All right. Well, then we haven't talked about what else could happen if the government, Congress doesn't take action, right? There's also risk of catastrophic disclosure by the Russians, by the Chinese, and even by NHIs in general, right? So, although they've had plenty of time to do so, and they haven't. So I wouldn't worry about NHI. I would worry about the Chinese and the Russians.
Well, yeah, it's funny, but there's this term catastrophic disclosure. I forget where it came from. It's snuck in.
It's Karl Nell. Karl Nell is
Nell responsible for that? Okay.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if he's ultimately responsible, but that's how it got popular.
I think I heard that before, Colonel Nell. But the problem with
he had a briefing at Seoul that went through some of these things.
Unfortunately, everybody's got a different definition of what catastrophic disclosure is, so it's not well defined. Disclosure by the Soviet Union by Putin or Xi Jinping I wouldn't see it as catastrophic. I would see it as definitely not in the best interest of the United States. But disclosure is a global matter. It's not a U.S. matter. It's about the entire planet. And so ultimately, I think we would follow suit very quickly. We would be embarrassed. It would be like when the Soviet...
Well, I think it's worse than embarrassment, though, because you claim to be the leader of the free world, yet...
It would be a bigger embarrassment.
Totalitarian regimes, are providing more information to the American people than their own government is. That's a problem.
It would be a bigger embarrassment than when they put the first satellite up than Sputnik. Okay, much bigger embarrassment.
This is past embarrassment. This is like collapse of credibility, because credibility is already teetering, right?
Well, we would follow suit. Every other nation would follow suit very quickly, and by and large, in the aftermath, the enormous global excitement surrounding the introduction of the post-disclosure world would drown out, overwrite the uncomfortability of not being first. At some point, people are not there. Very soon, no one's going to care. At least the public's not going to care. It's like, we got disclosure now. What do you got? And then as soon as our government starts bringing things forward and getting the information out, undoubtedly after a rapidly passed UAP Disclosure Act, people would go, okay, that's good. That's just keep it coming. And let me put a point on that. We will get everything. We will know where those underground facilities are. They will get opened up to undoubtedly at least presidential teams to view, and maybe even the press at some point. We will get it all. This is not something, this is like the dam breaking. It's like the dam breaks and the water's coming out, and after about 60% of the reservoir, somebody says, okay, that's enough. We don't need any more water. Oh no, the whole reservoir is going to drain. That's the way physics works. And that will be the case here. I want people to understand that once we get this going, it is not going to stop. There may be some things that, for whatever reason, are so sensitive in some manner that they are the very last things to come out. But if we get the right worldview change and we start addressing the problems we're facing in this world and fixing issues and dealing with our crisis, there may not be a need after a reasonable amount of time to keep even those sensitive things secret. It's okay. Let's get it all out. So this is a big deal. When I say this is the biggest event in human history, I'm not overstating.
All right, you are ever the optimist, Steve. Let me just paint a scenario of how that could be more catastrophic than many think.
Give me your best shot.
Okay, so let's say the Russians come out and they say during the Cold War, and the KGB was relatively active during that period, and I'm sure they have a storehouse of activity. So, and I wouldn't be surprised if they know about deliberate acts of executions by the U.S. government of American citizens, et cetera, et cetera. Possibly. I mean, there's no way for me to confirm that. They also might have extensive evidence of, heaven forbid, if there's an agreement that we signed with some civilization that allowed them to abduct people and experiment with them, et cetera, et cetera. But let's just imagine they're not going to release the unicorns and rainbows version of what's going on. They're going to take all the absolute most horrific nuggets they have and flood the American information space with it. Okay. Then what do you do? What does the U.S. government do? Well, there's certain factions in government that are very much in favor of limiting misinformation and disinformation. So somebody reacts by calling Facebook and, kind of like they did in the last election, and saying, delete this story, prevent this from being spread. Okay. And meanwhile, it enrages the American people who want to start asking questions. And not only that, the government's not ready for this. The government doesn't have answers ready. So even if they try to proactively address this, they're going to look weak, ineffective, and they're already going to confirm what everybody already thinks about them. Then you have kind of what I think Karl would call a mimetic viruses, right? Memes that spread like crazy. Like, I'm just making stuff up, okay? And this is what people do, right? Remember, I'm not going to go into other conspiracy theories and things like that, I'm sure there's people in the audience who might believe them. So anyway, let's just say that, hey, they're putting this substance in the drinking water. And then people just start, in order to save it, you have to put this substance in the drinking water. And you have all these people doing all sorts of random dangerous stuff that the government just can't control because these mimetic viruses spread on just based purely on fear. So you have a dramatic acceleration of chaos if the Russians just did something like that. And it doesn't take very much for them to just press a few buttons, engage their bot farms at the Internet Research Agency, what do they call the IRA? That used to be Prigozhin's operation. Prigozhin, may he rest in peace, for challenging Putin and then being not disappeared, but shot down on an aircraft. So that's what I think could happen if the Russians or the Chinese were to do some sort of catastrophic disclosure.
Okay. All right. So let's see. First of all,
I have a dark mind, Steve. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I'm just saying if I leveraged my creativity in a very dark way and I were the Russians, that's exactly what I would do.
Okay. So with regard to Prigozhin, may he rest in hell. Prigozhin was an incredibly evil person. All right.
Right.
So here's an overall statement that applies to this. Mimetic memes, conspiracy theories, disinformation, and propaganda flourishes behind lies, not the truth. It's lies that make them more prevalent, that give them a greater range, not the truth. And so, first and foremost, if either Xi Jinping or Putin were to disclose and confirm the truth of an extraterrestrial presence, that is the truth, right? That's not in what creates conspiracies. That's what reduces or eliminates conspiracies. Secondly, the United States has been, been preparing for disclosure now for the last 7 years minimum, though it's been gaming it out on its supercomputers for God knows how long. And they did a whole study on it in the early 90s. Had a public relations firm do it. So even if Putin disclosed tomorrow, I assure you, we have some idea are going to have to deal with that. And it's not complicated. The first thing you do is say, oh, yeah, they're here, right? We were going to tell you, meant to. We were getting there, almost there. Vlad got ahead of us. It's okay. Doesn't matter. So that's the first thing will happen. Xi Jinping will follow. The other nations will follow. And you'll have this fundamental truth out there. Now, you're going to have at that point a world inflamed in two very important ways. One, that's an unbelievable truth. I want a whole lot more of truth. I want to know what you have. I want to know everything. I don't want you to hold back. I want it all out. Let's get it out. I'll have that. And two, you've been lying to us about this for 77 years. Not only that, but a whole lot. And so we don't want any more of that. All right. You can stop that. And so any idiot, fool, jackass, or whatever their position, whether the head of state, the head of the military, or the head of the propaganda unit, or any bot farms or whatever else that decides, let's take advantage of this and see how much chaos we can do.
Eglin.
I
Hello,
think
Eglin Air
that's
Force
not going to
Base
go
spot
well
farm.
for them. All right. It's going to go very,
Right.
very badly. In other words, they will have made the wrong move at the wrong time. And so I am not worried about that. Now, again, if Putin were to disclose the ET truth finally and confirm it with plenty of confirmation, which they have, then Putin becomes the disclosure head of state. He gets that legacy, all glory to Russia, and the United States is embarrassed. Okay. Xi Jinping's also embarrassed, unless they did a joint statement, which would be really a pain in the ass, but whatever. Okay. And that's about it. After that, it all comes down to who is going to reveal what and how quickly they're going to do it. And the public is going to be not only absolutely insistent, but the media, all media, whose very existence is to tell news, make money, get eyeballs, is got the biggest story in human history. And so they're going to be competing to get every piece of it. All right. And if you're the media and you really want to break that story and continue to break the story, and you put in some grotesque nonsense that somebody delivered up to you on a website and blow your credibility, you've just taken yourself off the field, right? You're not on the field of play anymore. Nobody wants to listen to you. So again, I anticipate a truth revolution and a substantial reduction to the field of conspiracy that literally is now shrouding the planet in a way in which nobody believes anything. Therefore, anything is possible. And the social media is being used to brainwash each other. I see that getting better. I see the truth being elevated, not by more lies. It's not like we can meme ourselves to that. We can't lie ourselves to there. We have to start telling the truth, and not just individually, but at the institutional level. And this will be the greatest truth of all time. So again, I remain optimistic, not simply because I have to be, and I do have to be optimistic because I'm an activist, but because it is called for. It is called for. Am I optimistic about avoiding nuclear war? No. My optimism there is very, very low, extremely concerned. All right. It is inevitable, barring a huge shift in the way we conduct our business internationally, and to some degree domestically. If we don't make that shift, which only disclosure can bring about, nuclear war is inevitable. So I'm not some crazy optimist just running around throwing flowers at people. No, I'm trying to be realistic. If it's worth being optimistic, yes. If it's not, no. And I've been really consistent about that.
Oh yeah, you definitely been consistent. The other thing that
I don't hear you. Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Wait a minute.
I think you unplugged your.
Turned off my sound. Did I? I didn't move. No.
Well, I can hear you, but I think you're. Now your sound's off.
My mic is My mic is not muted, but I cannot hear you, Sean.
All right, let me just put it out to the.
Let's check audio. My audio is
Yeah.
good. My speakers are good. Hang on.
Can everybody hear me? If you're in the
No,
chat, just
I don't know.
confirm if you can hear me still. Uh-oh. Yeah, they can
I
hear
switched
me.
camera accidentally, but I didn't switch audio. HD True Vision standard definition 400. Let's go to 720. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
I can't hear you.
I think when you switched camera. Yeah, because the audience can hear me. Speaker cord. Yeah.
My mic is now on, has been unmuted. And I have the speakers on, the right speakers, but I cannot hear you. Say something.
Can you hear me now?
No. Are you muted?
No.
Interesting.
Yeah. Audience.
Fascinating. I don't know. I don't know what's happened here. Wow. Let me switch. I may have. No, you're hearing me, so my mic is working. Okay. I am on my audio setting. It's real speaker on my computer. Let me test it.
Okay, can you hear me?
I just tested my speakers. They're working fine. I can't hear you.
It could be. Yeah.
It's got to be a setting on your end. We could. Yeah, but again, yeah, I dropped the mic, but the mic is now working. I've checked all my settings; they're correct, and so there's just.
Oh, now I lost you. Now I lost you. Yeah, put headphones. I can't hear you now.
We could do that.
I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Okay.
You can hear me?
Leave and come back. Leave and.
Yeah.
Okay.
You leave and come back. Yeah.
Where do I go here? What the hell did I just turn?
Okay. I'm going to continue talking. I think you all can hear me. I definitely heard like something switching, grinding or something like that. Yes. 100%, Reverend Randall. Something was moving like a mic and scratchy. Yeah. And then that's when it died. So yeah, I think it's hardware related, 100%. So we'll get back to it. I mean, I think I was going to push back on the secondary. Yeah, where it's Eglin Air Force Base. Maybe not, but I actually I wouldn't even say maybe not. I would say it's not that, but it's something clearly hardware related on his end. So, all right,
there we go.
All right, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
We'll never know what happened.
Yeah, restart. Okay, so I'm gonna add another twist to the Russian disclosure thing.
Twist.
So let's assume that the U.S. government is prepared for that, which is, in my opinion, a gigantic. Based on the Taliban parade with billions of dollars of U.S. equipment, I would say is probably not an unreasonable assumption. Okay. So let's say, okay, they are ready. All right. Again, big if. And I'm sure that narrative was to kind of get the easy stuff out first, like, hey, we're not alone. There are other crafts. We have some agreements with these good guys, but they're not going to really be able to get into the dark stuff very early on. But the Russians are going to put that up front.
Okay.
How are they going to handle that?
The one aspect of a non-U.S. disclosure is they may bring out things that are not on the front of the menu, in which case it gets out sooner, right? It just means they're going to have to deal with it a little bit sooner than they intended to. If they're, and that is awkward. If there is a deal between us and the ETs, which is a very serious public relations issue,
especially if the Senate didn't ratify said agreement.
Yeah, it wasn't ratified by the Senate. That's something that they would probably not want to be going up front with, though they're going to get asked about it from day one. You see, the press can read books and go online like you and I, right? They know who Richard Dolan is. They
Are
know
you sure about that, Steve?
Yeah, they
You're talking
do.
about the
Absolutely.
modern press. You're talking about the modern press here.
No, I'm talking about the government. The government knows what we've been doing all these years, and so they understand that if the Russians were to announce something that they weren't ready to deal with right away, that would be unfortunate. But there's nothing they can do about it. They're going to have to admit to it right away and go, there it is. Now, if we have a deal with the ETs, it's very likely the Soviets do too, or the Russians do too. Again, look, here's it. Let's simplify it. All the scenarios that you can come up with all have one thing in common. Most of the nations of the world are going to have one degree or another serious public relations problems. They're going to need to hire public relations professionals to make them look good. Now, of course, that's a very well-known profession. People are constantly doing that. People that have unbelievably awful things they've done, they hire a professional, and 2 years later, they're on the Tonight Show or whatever the hell, and everybody loves them. And so there's going to be a lot of that, and everybody's going to have to deal with it as the best they can. It's impossible to avoid it all. It might be possible to mitigate it, but the fact is that the one thing that will most likely minimize the problems that government's going to have post-disclosure is telling the truth. In other words, tell the truth. And so I'm gonna make a prediction. 1 or 2 days after the president,
I will too when you're done making your prediction.
Let's make predictions. Yeah. 1 or 2 days after the president confirms the ET presence or non-human intelligence presence, whatever the hell you want to call it, subsequent probably to a massive hearing in front of the Senate that was shown all around the world, the next day, a lot of press are going to be in every briefing room in town. Every briefing room, DOD, the White House, the congressional briefing room, you name it. If there's a briefing room, they're going to be packed in it. And the questions are going to be coming. And I'm going to make a prediction that on day one, more than one reporter is going to raise their hand and go, well, now that we know there's non-human intelligence here, is there any truth to the reports that they are abducting human beings? They're going to ask that. They're not going to be going, well, that would be an awkward question. I don't want to get that story right now. Let's wait until we go later. No, they're going to ask it.
I don't think that's because I think the modern press will report whatever the CIA tells them to report.
I disagree. I get that. I heard that. It's not true.
Yeah.
They have restraints of a certain kind, but the relationship between the press and the deep state has been exaggerated by the great magnifying glass of social media, which you don't get enough eyeballs unless you make something so extreme, it's galactic, okay? And if that doesn't get the eyeballs, you make it even bigger. I don't go in there. I don't do that. The press has done a pretty good job in a lot of respects on this. They've written tens and tens of thousands of articles about it. They've been asking the right questions. They need to get better. We need a reform media. We need a reform government. All that's post-disclosure. I'm just saying, the first day, they're going to be asked that question more than once. And if they have any sense at all, unless they put complete idiots out in front of the media that day, the answer has got to be Yes, you simply cannot lie post-disclosure about something that millions of people have already figured out is true by
Oh,
reading.
I don't think they're going to lie. I think they're
Exactly.
just going to attempt to control the narrative using mainstream media sources.
How do you control the narrative? Yeah, are non-humans abducting human beings? Yes, they are. Now, the next question might be, well, why are they doing that? What do you know about that? Now, the answer there is a different matter. If you are a spokesperson for the White House, the DOD, the answer for that is, look, that the details will come out in time. We have a disclosure act, as you know. We have a process to bring things forward, and so this kinds of information is going to come out. But I am not in a position today to describe to you everything that has gone on regarding the government and ETs going back 70 years. But there are certain questions that are pretty straightforward. Does the United States have a formal agreement with extraterrestrials? Formal meaning that it's somehow maybe not written on a piece of paper, but clearly was formalized with.
You want me to answer that? You want me to answer that? How I think they'll answer it?
If it's true, they have to say yes. Because
given the nature of any such agreement, if such an agreement exists, are very delicate and subject to national security concerns. Over time, we will provide details as the security situation may or may not change. Next question.
Well, you're right, but I'm simply saying that the question is basic. Do you have an agreement? And the answer has got to be yes if they do. Now, the next...
I agree with you. But no politician ever answered a question yes, ever. Right?
But I'm talking about, this isn't a politician. I'm talking about the spokesperson for the White House, the spokesperson for the Department of Defense, all right? The answer has got to be yes. On the next question, can you tell us what that agreement was? And the answer to that would be, look, those details and these things are going to come out in an orderly process under the Disclosure Act, was Pat, whatever the hell, and you're going to get this information, right? On day one, there's only so much you can do. There are certain key questions that will be asked, and some of them, and whatever answers they give, have either got to be like, David Grush or your typical hearing. The answer is either yes or no, or the truth, or I'm unable to answer that question in public session because of whatever NDAs. That's it. Any deviation from that is going to be extremely destructive. In other words, if they lie and then that lie comes back and gets told, then that person's gone. All right, they're gone. They're fired. They're out.
Well, that's my prediction. Is if there is catastrophic disclosure, every single person in government will be removed in the next election cycle, if there is a next election cycle.
Well, there's a lot of people that aren't elected. I mean, they're civil servants in the military. Let's just say that a lot of the concerns that people have are a little misplaced, and the reason is this: this isn't a political event. This is an historical event of unimaginable magnitude. It transcends politics and religion and finance. It transcends international borders. It is global. And so how it's being handled is important, and what is being said is important. But ultimately, what people are interested in is getting the truth and moving forward in the post-disclosure world, not picking out who needs to be fired or who needs to be canceled. That the focus is not going to go there that much. The amount of retribution people expect is not going to happen. Criminal charges, not likely. What do you call it? Now I can't remember the name, but a lot of the things that people expect are not going to happen because they can't.
Like a Truth and Reconciliation Commission.
Now that can happen. You'll see something like that. You'll see further an amnesty program. Things like that are appropriate. And one of the reasons for those kinds of programs is to, again, keep the focus forward and not backward, right? Now, look, let the historians go back, hopefully, and they will, and hopefully a minimal amount of evidence has been sent through the shredder or into the burn basket. The point is that they will go back and try to report the whole history. The politicians and the people need to be focused on how do we conduct our affairs now that we know we're not alone in the universe?
Yeah, going forward.
How can we get as much information out as possible? We want to learn about this, the now, but the past is gone, right? And yeah, we need to reform government. And this is one of the reasons the truth embargo is one of the reasons, but let's focus on the reform. And so it's very positive. It'll be a very positive time. And so it's not going to be quite as uncomfortable as people think, but it will be pretty uncomfortable for certain aspects of various. Well, the dictatorships won't care. They'll tell you the truth. You don't like it, screw you, right? If they don't want the press in the briefing room, there will be no press there. So they will, as usual, be more insulated. But the democracies, whether it's the UK, Australia, Canada, every one of those heads of state is going to be a little awkward. But as far as all the other countries, right? Australia, UK, Canada, Spain, France, Germany, Japan, all of those, when the heat gets turned up a little bit, they're going to have a basic response. Look, we deferred to the United States, the great nuclear power, the only power truly capable of protecting against the Soviet and Chinese nuclear threat, and the greatest, the greatest economy in the world upon which we are very much dependent. We deferred the decision on this to them, and therefore, so sorry. Fine, that's fine with me. So that's again a sense of how I think it'll go.
Yeah, I think it's very optimistic. I think a lot of these politicians are done after. I mean, again, this is if and only if it's some form of catastrophic disclosure because they kept pushing or kicking the can down the road.
Even without disclosure, a lot of them need to go. I mean, we have a lot of politicians that need to go.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to comment on that because I'm
not naming names. I'm simply saying we have it's like having a basketball team where you have 20 players, and like 17 of them are really terrible. Unless they quit or go away, you're never going to win a game.
Yeah, at this point, Steve, I think if our just government winked out of existence overnight, I don't think people would even notice. But
until the water turned off and the power went down, and
Well, I'm not saying local. Now,
local government could say okay.
Local, even that's a little. Well, though nuclear power plants, you'd have some.
Yeah,
issues.
We want those to run. Look, it's reformable. It is fixable still, and. There's nothing in this world right now that we're facing that can't be fixed. Believe it or not, I'm not aware of anything other than death. You can't fix that. But there's nothing in the world we can fix. We simply won't do it. So
that's what's so frustrating about it, because everything is easily fixable. It's just the people in charge are like, hey, I mean, even my governor, right? Like, hey, you can only buy EVs in 2030. It's like, all right, champ, are we going to have enough power to support that? To support that increased massive drain on the grid? Oh, you're not building any new power plants? Okay. All right. We'll see how that, I can tell you how that's going to go today. Right.
Well, it may be those that are pressing for only EVs in 2030 know something we don't know. They may know that, oh yeah, we will have plenty of power by then.
You're such an optimist, Steve. These people aren't that smart.
I don't know. They were smart enough to build the EVs.
Well, no, engineers and those folks built the EVs.
Remember, we went to the moon. That was a government program, basically.
Yeah, I'm not putting any shade on the government in the 1960s. I'm putting shade on the government now.
Yeah,
there's a distinct difference in competence between at least when they lied to us back then, they were sneaky about it. Like it wasn't like out in the open, like just pure like, she was never the border czar. Anyway, that's just an example. I'm not trying to pick a side.
Both parties lie up their ass.
100%. I mean, remember COVID? Like, I mean, equal opportunity there for governments lying to people. But anyway, I'm not going to get into that. Okay, so what can we do in a proactive manner and not in the kind of cynical manner in which I conducted myself on this? I'm very cynical about this stuff. So in a non-cynical, positive manner, like you embodying the best of you, Steve, because you were very positive. Because I know it's never helpful to like start ranting at a politician on Twitter. Like it's not productive. It's not helpful. What sorts of things should people be thinking about doing in order to put constructive pressure on their representatives to get this stuff through?
Well, they're doing that. I mean, the New Paradigm Institute is marshaling some additional public pressure. I'm doing the same thing. Let me share for a while. Let me go ahead and hopefully this is not what happened before. Let me make sure that doesn't happen. But let me just go down here and try another share, and hopefully that won't cause a problem.
Well, we know how to fix it if it does.
Yeah, we do. Let's go to where is it? Where is it? Come here. Oh, there it is. Okay. So this is my website, Paradigm Research Group. I think I can scroll. I think the scrolling shows. For some time now, I've had something called the Shift Storm, and this was a project which I put out substantially, back a year, still been up, encouraging people to essentially send tagged tweets to these individuals that you see there, particularly the ones on the right, which are 5 key members of the Senate, asking for those hearings, wanting those hearings. And that's been going on. And of course, the podcast army, we've been discussing the hearings and the need for hearings on podcasts. I don't know how countless podcasts relentlessly for months. I've done a couple of hundred since, I don't know, mid last year. So that's all good. But there is a lot going on right now, as you probably know. And so there's almost, so much you can do on an issue like this. Now, again, there are other issues out there that people are literally extremely involved in and need to address. And so there's only so much they can do. I'm trying to get back to where I'm supposed to be here. Where did you go? I'm sorry.
I'm still here. Can you
that's
still
right.
hear me?
I opened up another tab. I opened you up in another tab. Hang on a second. Here we go. Okay. So look, here in general, people need to be mindful of the fact that we are very close to disclosure, that it is in the hands of the Senate and Mark Warner. All right. That there are other members of Congress that are definitely helping here, such as Bert Chet, Nancy Mace, Ana Paulina Luna, right? Robert Garcia, Ruben Gallego, and of course the entire Senate Intel Committee. Feel free to let them know how much you appreciate that. You can email them, you can tag tweet them, you can reach them. Whatever, you can call them up. Do that, and just in that sense, just be aware. And to the extent that you can encourage them to, fine. You don't have to march on Washington. That's not going to work. We're very close. And then you need to start thinking about the post-disclosure world. In other words, what is my plan? How will, if at all, I change my thinking or my what I'm doing once the announcement comes? Now, heads of companies really need to think about this, and they need to be hiring people to advise them about this. And I don't mean government people. But they're not doing that. At least I don't think they are. I'm happy to advise any company that would like some thinking about what to do if we get that confirmation. Certainly religion is already thinking about it. The Catholic Church is way out in front on this. They're ready. But in general, the post-disclosure world.
To be fair, the Catholic Church has the advantage that they never technically lied about any of this. That's
I guess so. I just know that they have clearly committed themselves to being part of the truth process here, if only 100%. To make up for some past sins in that area.
Well, there's other issues that we don't need to discuss, but
yeah, sure.
This isn't one of them, right?
So let me see. So the post-disclosure era is profoundly important because it is the first opportunity for a worldview change of such a magnitude that people really could rethink what they want in life, what businesses want to conduct them, how businesses want to conduct themselves, how countries want to conduct themselves, and actually take a serious look at what we're doing, which what we're doing is catastrophic. All right. And saying, look, let's don't do that because, well, a worldview change is a worldview change. It's like, no, I don't want to use that analogy, but let's just say that a worldview change is important because it literally changes the way people think, and it gives you a chance to make different choices. Now, obviously, things like that happen on an individual basis. You have what we'll call a dramatic worldview change on a personal basis. Is very profound. There are many examples of that, but one of the classic is near-death experience. it's a situation where a person is leading a very negative life, maybe even nasty, unpleasant. Their whole outlook is really toxic. They have this near-death experience, which we know what that's like. It's been described, and then they come back. They literally are a changed person, not because of some magic, but because this experience literally changed the way they see themselves and the world, and suddenly they act differently. Now, that's an extreme case. In the case of the worldview change from disclosure, some people's view will dramatically change. Some governments will have significant changes, but in some cases it will not be large. It will be small, but it will be small across such a vast array of people and nations. A small amount times 8 billion is a big worldview change. And it is this, in this moment, this unique, unprecedented, probably never to be surpassed moment that's going to last for a number of years. We have the opportunity to decide, are we going to continue to conduct our affairs this way? Destroy each other, destroy cities, spends trillions of dollars on destruction, why hundreds of millions of people starve, destroy the environment, destroy the planet virtually almost itself, and create untold, endless human misery? Or are we going to not do that, right? Are we going to fix that? It's that opportunity. If we squander it somehow, well, I won't have any regrets. I'll leave this world going, I did what I could, and just have some, I don't know, sadness for what lies ahead for the rest of the poor souls that are still alive. This is the nature of where we're at. This is not like any other time in history. Nothing compares to this. It's so big. It's like standing with your nose to a mountain and trying to understand how big it is. It's hard. You have to step back in order to see how big it is. It's that big. And so a lot of people are not getting it yet. My job is to help them get it. That's why I do podcasts all the time. I'll do one on 10 minutes notice. That's my job. I'm not a book writer. I'm not a podcaster. I am a guest. And
that's why I love having you on, because you're very responsive and you show up and you know what you're talking about and you provide context. Most you had to deal with my not irascibility, but you know what I did when I was in the army, right? I fought like the Russians. Like that's what I did for 5 years.
You were doing intel? No.
I was at the National Training Center in the Mojave Desert.
Okay. All right. So you're a Cold War warrior. Yeah. Okay. Good. Good.
Yeah. I know how to think. I know how to think like Putin. So unfortunately, that's dark. That's where the darkness comes from.
You need to know how to think like the quote enemy. So let's hope that he changes his thinking. Now, let me see if I've got, I think I may have another, let's see if I've got some, couple of the promos here. Let me just see if I can grab this. Go down a little, present. Okay. Let's go screen share. I got a couple other things, I think. Yeah. I want to show you this. This is an important project that I founded with publicist Dan Harari, Hollywood publicist Dan Harari, about almost a year ago. The first anniversary is coming up on November the 3rd. It's the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. There's really no entity like it in the planet. It's unique. It's a 501c3. It only runs on donations, tax deductible donations, and it was created for one reason: to help the professional filmmakers, content makers, anywhere, not just Los Angeles, but Canada, UK, India, wherever the hell they're operating, professional content creators, and the UAP researchers, documentarists, activists, and so forth, and journalists that have been doing all the heavy lifting for all these years without being paid hardly anything and suffering greatly and being told that they're crazy. Okay. To make it easy for them to find each other, to network and create projects that will inform the world, both pre-disclosure and post-disclosure. And we, even though we've started with virtually no money at all, and we have not gotten any major funding yet, hopefully we will, we have now grown to 174 members. And the way it's structured is we have a board made up of an executive committee, right? Which includes Paul Hynek, the son of J. Allen Hynek, in case you're wondering. And then we have a regular board, okay, which is made up of 10 Hollywood members and 10 UAP members. A Hollywood member or board member is someone whose fundamental background is in the content creation world. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Some of people are obvious, some are less obvious, right? And then the UAP world are people that have been involved in the UAP issue. Who could be more appropriate than, say, Earl Grey Anderson, right? The director of Southern California MUFON, and myself, right? And others. So we have UAP founding members and we have Hollywood founding members, board. But then we also have founding members. Now, these are individuals who have basically lent their bio and image, right, to getting this organization underway. And we now have about 70 of these. We have a total of 174 members. So we have about 80 of these. And these are the Hollywood members, founding members. We have at least one Oscar winner. We have another one we think are going to come on board pretty soon. And these are people that they've been in the biz, right? Directors, producers, writers, production, you name it, publicists. It's all here, all right? And so we also have UAP members, and they are obviously people, many of which you know. I'm sure that a number of these people, some of these people have actually guested on your show, all right? They are the UAP members, and they have lent their bio, and they have lent their image to this organization. And they are able to network with there's three ways networking takes place. There's networking within the UAP members as they kind of identify themselves as being part of this group, within the Hollywood members who have obviously identified themselves publicly as being part of this group, and then across the two groups, in other words, UAP and Hollywood people, Hollywood or content people networking together, and then people who are not a member of the organization. They're not a member, but they see those that are, and so they reach out to them because, oh, okay, you're somebody I want to work with, all right? And so this is what the organization does. And then we have a further structure. We have supporting members. Everybody that gives a nickel to donates a tax-deductible nickel gets listed under the supporting member section, okay? Hopefully that list will become thousands pretty soon. And then we also have affiliates, okay? These are organizations that are affiliated that will grow. And so we're setting up a sponsorship section where corporations, commercial entities that would like to be associated with this, that anticipate potentially business opportunities in the post-disclosure world, will provide funding in turn for a sponsorship. And this is where people can donate. It's pretty easy. So this is the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. Dan Harari is the publicist. Partnered with me to do this, and it was his idea. Fantastic idea. And he is based in Hollywood. I'm based in DC, but I go back and forth. And so I wanted to share that with y'all. All right. And so let me go back now to the StreamYard. And I want to present another one here. Just a second. Let's see. Present. I got to stop screen and then present again. I'm going to share. I want to show you, let's see. Oh, this is kind of big. It is this. For those that don't know it, the premier filmmaker in the UAP world. There are other great filmmakers, I assure you. Ron James is good. There are many, many. But I think the premier guy is James Fox. And James Fox has had 2 documentaries recently, Phenomena and Moment of Contact, but his next one may be his piece de resistance. Because of his contacts, because of his gravitas and history, he has pretty much gotten everybody you would expect to see in a doc about the program. And it's called The Program. And it is basically about what the hell has happened in the last 7 years. It's going to come out, I believe, on October 23. It would be fantastic if it got a full big screen presentation. If there's any producers out there with the power to make that happen, get in touch with me. I can certainly put you in touch with James. It deserves to be on a big screen. But in any event, this is going to be a significant doc. And of course, it's happening before the election and will just help bring about, hopefully, the hearings.
So, Steve, this is coming out when? October 23rd? Is that right?
October 23, yeah. I'm looking through the article, not seeing a date, but I seem to recall hearing that. So I'm sure it's kind of close. But, those things can get changed. It's coming out can be a little problematic. So we'll see. Now let me go back here. There's something else I want to show you. Just a second.
By the way, that date is very, very meaningful to me because I'm sitting on 2 Jason Sands interviews that I can't put out until he appears first in the program. So like the day after, I just will.
Well, let me put the word out. I'll tweet this. Any podcaster, and there's a lot. There's a lot of them. You may know that there's a lot of podcasters out there. I've done I don't know how many podcasts. I've got 260 interview links in my list. Right, a few of them are dead links, but any podcaster that's touching this issue needs to get set already and line up people to be on your show after that film breaks open. Okay, just say it. Okay, that's a no-brainer. All right, now let me see. Let me go down. I think there's something else I got here. Just a second. Let's see. Oh yeah, this is just to let people know something is happening. I'm in the middle of. It's kind of complex, but I'm in the middle of converting Paradigm Research Group to essentially a think tank. Less of a pure activist organization, more of a think tank with some advocacy aspects. It is now a formal 501c3 based in the District of Columbia, and allowing me to raise tax deductible money. And I've got several major projects that I could launch with just $30,000 if somebody's got the interest to do that. But I've got to, first of all, I got to get my donation page up. I've got to restructure my website. And get that up. I've got to get a GoFundMe up, and I'm behind. But as soon as I get that up, I'm going to be pressing to try to raise the money so that PRG can be ready to deal with the post-disclosure world. Not as a big entity. I'll be small. Danny Sheehan's New Paradigm Institute is like a cruise ship. I'm like a small, a large fishing boat, but more maneuverable. Plus, I'm based in 1.5 blocks from the White House in an incredible building with conference space, and I belong to the press club. So PRG is now nonprofit. Somebody wants to donate now, give me a call. We can make it happen. I have an account open, but this is happening. You're going to see it unfold over the next week. Hopefully no more than that. So I want to mention that. Okay. There may be one other promo, and then we can go back to whatever. Let me see. Present, stop screen. I'm getting really good at this. Share screen. Oh, I love this. This is so cool. Let's see. Donations, Hollywood disclosure.
You got to start your own podcast, Steve. You got to do like.
No, I can't do it. You want to know why? Because if you do a podcast, you got to do them, right? You got to. If it's live, you're committed to it. And I am a guest, right? I'm a guest. I don't want.
You just have to show up. You just have to show up and
just sit there. Yeah, no, I'd rather be a guest.
Deal with my irascible questions.
No, I love having my own podcast army, right? And because it's what I do, it's core to what I do. I mean, somebody can call me.
You also recommend guests. I've had guests reach out to me that were recommended by you. I appreciate.
I've shared my list of podcast interview emails, all 270 with a number of people. I just said, hey, here it is.
Keep sharing away, brother. I always appreciate that.
So if somebody calls me 5 minutes notice, I just lost my guest. The odds favor that I'll be able to say sure. And I'll be on in 5 minutes. Not always, but I'm available almost all the time based upon.
You realize what you're signing up for, Steve?
No, I love it. I love it. Right? I can't do too many.
I do one of these live things a week. So
well, you know what it's like, right? But you are part of the podcast army, my friend. You are helping to bring disclosure. You know that, don't you? I hope you're aware of that. Okay. You'll have some champagne ready. Okay, for celebrating the day that the president does this, even if it's Putin, you still want to celebrate. Have some friends over, right? Show some of your old interviews.
I got some ancient history with Biden, by the way.
Well, there you go.
Like positive stuff, actually. I'm not like, I'm not going to, but I was his primary nominee for the Air Force Academy way, way back when.
No kidding.
I turned him down, though. I went.
I was accepted to the Air Force Academy.
Yeah, I was too. Yeah, but
I was third in my class. I was accepted. They flew down one of these people to show off, and we flew us around in a seaplane or whatever the hell. And I applied, and of course my dad.
Yeah, you had to get a nomination. You had to get a nomination, right?
No. This was back in the second year that it existed. You didn't need a nomination then. You needed a nomination for like the Naval Academy. I didn't get one of those, but so they were glad to have me, right? So And my dad was thrilled. It was going to be free. Right. And I'm going, is this me? But I had all
I got the same pressure, except I got
was
into
a
all
Navy
three.
officer. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. My dad's like, it's free. I'm like, but Dad, I got into Stanford. Like, I want.
Oh, you got into Stanford. Oh, well, how about that? My goodness.
Yeah, that's the first time.
Well,
Hey,
baby.
we've had a number of interactions. This is the first time you knew that. And
No.
it's probably the first time my audience knew that.
Just a little message to people. The people doing these podcasts, they're pretty smart people, folks. Let me tell you, they're very smart. Anyway, the point is, I got accepted.
I just work hard.
Yeah, you just, I know. You ground it out. You ground your way through Stanford.
Yeah, I ground my way through life. That's right.
Okay. I was accepted, and I passed all the tests, all kind of stuff. But I had to get a physical. That's the last thing. So I got a physical. I did it at the Naval Hospital. They sent it off, and I got a letter back shortly thereafter saying, we can't accept you because you have a heart murmur. And I'm going, I don't think so, right? I have a heart murmur. And so I went back to the Naval Hospital in Stanford, and they tested me again. And sure enough, I was fine. The guy had wired me up wrong. So we sent off the new results. And then I got a letter back that said, unfortunately, we did not get the final results until the class had closed. And you can't come now.
They even tell you wait until next year. They didn't.
No. I could have applied for the next year. Yeah. This was 1964. So I was not that committed. I mean, to me, it was like, it's cool. It's brand new. They got these nice buildings. It's in Colorado, nice mountain views. But I wasn't that committed. And I'd applied to other colleges. And so I didn't go. I went to another school. But that is how close. If that corpsman wires me upright, I go to the Air Force Academy. Its second year of existence, 1964. Now, looking back, given that I was like 17 going on 12, I mean, it's utterly immature, undisciplined in a way, it would have been probably the perfect thing I needed, right? I needed discipline. I needed structure. I needed, get organized, get fit, things like that. Did I need to be an Air Force officer? I don't know. But it would have made a completely different person. And probably I would have had a much happier life. But I didn't go. I didn't get that kind of discipline. And I didn't have such a happy life. Such are the tiny little things that affect us during the course of one lifetime.
Well, again, always the dark side of everything, Steve. If you had gone in 1964, you would have graduated in 1968.
That's right.
In 1968, if you were an academy graduate, you're going straight to Vietnam, my friend.
Not exactly. If you got drafted in 1968, I got drafted in 1967 and 1970. Yeah, you go straight to Vietnam. But if you're an Air Force second lieutenant out of the academy, the chances are, and you're smart, the chances are you're going to get into intel. And the chances are, even if you go, you're going to be in an office somewhere in Saigon, or you're operating from Guam or whatever the hell. No, it would have been not that big a deal. But
well, that's what I got in the Army. The Army, I got. The good news is you're branch detailed military. You're military intelligence.
There you go.
The bad news is you're branch detailed armor. So it turned out to be good news.
Why is that
basically
bad news? Why is that bad news?
Well, at the time, because I wanted to go into military intelligence initially, but it ended up being a good thing. But they basically they don't need a lot of lieutenants, so they send you to an armor unit, and you're, for all intents and purposes, a cavalry officer. So they sent me to NTC because, I mean, it would be perfect for somebody who's comes back as a captain into military intelligence. But I never went back. I got out after that. And
did you get to ride around in a tank?
Oh yeah, yeah.
No, man, come on, that's great.
Yeah, and I got to fight like a motorized rifle, company commander. Anyway, we're getting way off track. People are like,
let me finish. One last point. If that guy had wired me up the way I was supposed to, I would almost certainly not be doing today what I'm doing. And there's no way I would trade that for anything that happened to me prior to 1995. I assure you.
Steve, you might know the secrets, but you would just be hiding them, not sharing them.
I'm very fortunate. I live long enough to enjoy this second act. I'm hoping I've got 10 more years. That's enough. And hopefully I'll see disclosure, hopefully by February.
Hopefully.
And then we'll do even more podcasts in the post-disclosure world.
Well, let's go positive now. I know I've been like, not cranky, but I've been like the yin to your yang. So, okay, let's say there's disclosure. It's very orderly, all this stuff. Okay.
Mhm.
Now, this is why it's so hard because we don't have any information about what the landscape is, i.e., are these civilizations,
Oh,
interdimensional? Are they extraterrestrial? Also, how close are they in intelligence? Are they going to suddenly show up and start doing jobs on Earth? Is there going to be like labor relations? Like, there's so many different implications of this sort of thing.
yeah.
How are we gonna? How's the patent office gonna deal with new inventions that are collaborated on with the help of more advanced civilizations?
And a
What
billion.
about like a decontamination protocol when they come here? Maybe they have. You hear about the Brazil. We're talking about James Fox, and like one of the guys got infected with this like super virulent bacteria from God knows where he had no defenses. So, I mean, I would hope that the government has thought through all these things because they have all the information, but I don't think that they have. I think they just looked at all the implications and just like, boy, that's too hard. Let's just kick the can down the road.
Look, they have supercomputers that run other supercomputers. They've also got AI. I assure you, they've gamed this out 18,000 ways to Sunday, but they can't game it all. We're
Right.
going to learn a great deal from our government that's going to help us address the situation, and it's going to be orderly. But the ETs are going to do what they want to do. And I have no idea. I can only guess what they're going to do, but I have a pretty good idea what I think they're going to do. And so, and we can finish with this, that, as I've said,
And by the way, we have about 10 minutes, about 13 minutes left. So
perfect, perfect.
Speaking.
If you examine the whole 77 years, starting with Roswell, discounting the fact there may have been a few crashes before Roswell, the evidence seems to be growing for that. But whatever happened, they were
like Cape Girardeau, the craft in Magenta,
33,
Italy.
46. Right. But that stuff was so tightly held that no one knew about it, maybe even a very limited number of people in government. What's different about 47 is that the base put out a press release and said, we have a flying saucer. What can you say? That launched the game. So in 77 years, if you look at the larger picture, there is a logic to it all. It's not chaos by any means. If you just look at what we know with high degree of confidence, what the ETs are doing, if you look at what the government is doing, and if you see what's going on in the world, there seems to be a logic to this. And it begins, if you want to start the story, it begins with Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I was actually conceived about 6.5 months after those bombs were dropped. That's how long it took for my father to get from Guadalcanal through Australia back to Mare Island, then to Bethesda, and meet and marry my mother. I mean, he didn't waste any time at all. And so I literally am born out of the nuclear explosions. Right away, ET presence manifest fast, lots. Sightings going on, 45, 46, 47. Not that well known because it was a different time, but there was plenty of activity. And then, of course, you've got the Roswell crash of 47. Then you're followed by the 52 flyover of Washington, D.C. These are not random things in a sense. And then from that point forward, there is a relative progression, both from the human side and the ET side. And ultimately, I believe it has a end game, right? And the end game is defined by a couple of things. In respect to disclosure, right? It is essentially defined by the Cold War. The Cold War and the nuclear arms race has been the number one thing preventing disclosure. Nothing else really is bigger than that. And that still is the case, right? It's dragged it out. What's happened is, as powerful as that obstacle is, so much has happened of a disclosure type and the citizen disclosure process, right? So much has happened. It's overwhelming that objection. All right. And then on the ET side, it's a little trickier, but I believe the fundamental time frame with respect to the extraterrestrials who have been here before, probably thousands of years ago, repeatedly, but it doesn't matter. That was a long time ago, and we were a different place. Why now? Why any time frame at all for them? Why do they care? And that is defined by our technological advancement curve. The nuclear weapons being one, because they have a concern about that. But
AI is the other.
Yeah, the other is star drive. The other is star drive. In other words, how do you get through space without having to go physically through space, subject to time dilation and the energy requirements under relativity? I believe there is a way around it. I think they have it, and they can get from place to place in very short amounts of time, which means that you can go from star to star. And if you pay attention and do a little research, it's not hard to discover that in the public sector, there's quite a bit of thinking and theorizing and equation generation on this. We are examining it from several directions, and a lot of people think we're very close. And that's in the public arena. We have no idea how much progress the government has made on star drive in the USAP programs. But I can assure you they've been motivated to do it because the ETs can do it. The ETs are from other stars. I think it's 99% that's the case. The government knows that. So if you know something can be done, the motivation to find out why is 1,000% greater. And so we're going to eventually go to the stars. I have the ability, I think, before 2050. All right. So why does that matter? Okay. From the standpoint of the ETs, okay, it's kind of like,
it's terrifying.
What happened to the Aztecs and the Mayan, the South American civilizations? As long as the Portuguese stayed in Portugal, there was no problem. But as soon as they showed up with their ships, they started spreading diseases all over South America and killed millions and millions of people. Okay, same thing. The ETs know that we build weapons of destruction and use them. We've always done it. We've never stopped. We've even dropped nuclear bombs on women and children and vaporized them. 200
of our own species. Our own species.
We're incredibly dangerous. And so they know that once we build starships, we're not heading out there without having, protection.
It's a protection.
Yeah. And so at that point, for the first time in our entire history of this planet, going back 4 billion years, we are a threat to our neighbors outside. And that is not going to be allowed to happen. You would have to be really, really stupid as an advanced civilization to let a civilization like ours build starships and head on out into the galaxy loaded with nuclear weapons. And so consequently, you're not going to let that happen. And then the only question.
Okay. Can everyone still hear me? Because I'm worried I lost Steve. Because it could be that I'm the one who's lost. Okay. All right. All right, good. Okay, so it looks like Steve is yeah, he froze. Yeah, he may have, but hopefully he has the presence of mind to come back on. Yeah, he's coming back. Yeah, I think he fell off, so I think he's going to come back on. That's my guess. So he's just getting started too. Yeah, he'll come back in. I think he's probably just checking his rig and will probably rejoin us. So I like where this discussion's going. I just hope people have thought through it, and I'm not. If the people, 100%. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's fair. Here we go.
Hey,
all right.
You ready for this? You ready for this?
Yeah.
The moment I said those words, my computer turned off. Now, let me be clear. Okay. The power
Which words?
Plug was in. It was like, they're not going to let that happen, right? There's no way they're going to let that happen. Leave this planet with nuclear weapons, because for the first time, we are a threat. I said something like that, and the computer shut off. Now, let me be clear. I checked the power cord. Absolutely fine. I checked the power level. No, I got plenty of power. Had nothing to do with that. I checked everything. There is no reason why this computer should have suddenly turned off. And it's never done that before. Furthermore, If the battery had been running out, I get a warning. There was no warning. It just turned off.
Yeah,
Just
welcome to my
saying.
world, Steve. Welcome to my
Yeah.
world. This stuff
Right.
happens routinely.
Oh,
I'll give you an example.
I hope they're paying attention. I want them to pay attention.
Oh, they're definitely, yeah, they're definitely given. Let me give you, this is going to sound crazy, but this actually happened. And I'll discuss it in a future podcast. But I DM'd somebody the other day as a guest, and he responds, DMs me back and says, "This is really strange. I had a dream last night that I was on your show." And that's not out of the ordinary. I was also on a live stream with Lynn Buchanan, and he slipped on something. Like I'm not going to repeat it, but they basically said there's a bunch of bases here and there's a base in this.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Spoke out of turn.
Yeah. Half an hour later, he had to like get up because someone was like pounding on his door.
No kidding.
And he went, he came back and he's like, yeah, this guy, it was like 10 p.m. at night.
Yeah.
And he said this guy was trying to sell me like an asphalt redo. Like how
10
long
p.m. at night.
Asphalt at 10 p.m. at night,
Okay.
right? Like,
yeah, okay, I get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So there's people are, they may not like actively be listening, but they're certainly running these podcasts through AI and picking up keywords and stuff like that.
Of course they are. Sure. And that's good. You want to know why? Because as the number grew and grew and grew and grew, and the number of organizations grew and grew and grew, and the number of witnesses coming forward grew and grew and grew. Yeah, I mean, they needed to kind of follow that, and I love it. I think they should. But at the same time, I'm sure they're getting the message. Hey, this is almost over, right? It's like, hey, what can you do, right? We're being overwhelmed. That's cool. It's all right. Remember, I've always said that the policy of the truth embargo is fundamentally legal under the National Security Act. It's not a fundamental crime, and they're all not criminals. Doesn't mean they haven't had the odd crime here and there. All right. And I've always believed that the fundamental reason of national security was justified initially. Right? I mean, if you just go back to 1947 and look at all the situations that were going on and continue on to 52 and forward, the idea that getting this out was maybe not a good idea, I would have probably made the same decision. So I just don't hold that kind of animosity toward the government along those lines. It's just that they went on too long. They kept it past the shelf life. Right. And so they couldn't end it. They started something they had trouble ending. And so there is where the mistake is. And the world got more and more dangerous. Plus, they had an opportunity in 1992, 3, 4, 5, really when it was optimal. And they blew that.
100%.
So these are mistakes,
100%.
not crimes.
Well, I mean, even the Russians, they got really leaky with their UFO programs. Like George Knapp kind of got the mother lode from, in terms of all their historical programs and stuff like that, was able to smuggle them, for lack of a better word, out of Russia.
Michael Nesselman went over and got some stuff. They really didn't oppose. They weren't objecting to Russians, I think, studying it and so forth for whatever reason. The Chinese, same thing. I mean, if you practiced Falun Gong in China, you went to jail. But if you were a UFO researcher, hey, no problem. Who knows, right? What? Say what? So, but ultimately, though, I mean, there was a limit, right? But you see, as an autocratic state, if they had a MUFON, they're less concerned about it, because if it got out of hand, they could deal with it like that. Okay, no problem. We
just shut off that person's internet, easy. Yeah. Right.
So one of the great accomplishments of any nation in history, as I've said many times, is the truth embargo. 77 years, keeping, quote, under control, not a secret, but embargoed, the truth about something that was evident to everybody all around the world. Okay, and actually pulling it off. I mean, this was not easy to do. It's not that the people are stupid. That's stupid. They're not. It's not as we have all these freedoms. We have free speech. But they were able to come up with a way to somehow keep this embargo going for 77 years with a minimal of bloodletting. You know what I'm saying? Some people have died, but it's not
that we know of.
Yeah, I mean, it would be the total number of people that have been killed related to this issue is just a bad weekend in Moscow. Okay, it's not that or Syria or in Russia.
It depends, right? If you're talking people disappearing in national parks, maybe they just disappeared in national parks for
that's not government. That alludes to possible ETs. The government's not taking people out of national parks. There is a concern that maybe ETs are. David Paulides' research can't be dismissed out of hand. I don't think it's true, But if it is, that's a serious post-disclosure discussion, right? Which is going to be a little hot and could be awkward.
Or maybe we signed a treaty where they're authorized to take people from national
That's even
parks.
more awkward.
I'm not saying that's the case, but that's the problem. There's so many of these what ifs because there's so much misinformation, and then the signal to noise ratio is extremely low. So it's hard to. That's why this mimetic issue is going to be a problem if they don't get a lot of this stuff out.
It's going to be a problem until we grow up and use Facebook and social media the way we should. But here, look, I've said this many times. Disclosure is going to happen. It's the biggest event in human history. There's going to be things about it that are going to excite you. And there's going to be things about it that are going to really disturb you. I mean, that's just the way it is. It's like being born, Hey, you're going to love life. It's going to be great. You're going to get milkshakes, merry-go-rounds, but you are going to die, possibly in pain for years, right? With tubes stuck up your ass, whatever, right? I mean, that's the way it is to be alive. And so we're going to have some good things. We're going to have some bad things. And the idea, if we just pretend nothing is happening, it'll all be okay. No. And so the government and the press and the people need to know that, like, this is life, the good, the bad, and the ugly. There's going to be some extraordinary things, but there's also going to be some very concerning things. Mm-hmm. Does it mean that we're going to learn that it's over? The ETs are going to come and take over and we're going to be their slaves? And my attitude would be, well, being an ET slave could be bad, could be not bad, but dying in a nuclear war is worse, better. I mean, what we haven't planned for ourselves.
Well, I mean, depends. I don't know if slavery is, death. Certain forms of slavery, death might be more preferable.
Yeah, there's good slavery and bad slavery, but overall, what we have in store for ourselves, I would be shocked if the ETs have worse in mind, right? I'm just saying, right? Now, if that's true, well, too bad. And again, there's nothing we can do about it. And so consequently, if the ETs have something awful for it, we can't do anything about it. And so let's know the truth. Let's have the opportunity to, I don't know, contemplate it, deal with it, or even enjoy our last years of freedom. But being kept in the dark,
even if it's bad news, it's better to know and prepare than to be surprised by it.
Keeping bad news from people rarely goes well.
Okay? And keeping bad news does not get better with age, ever.
What was it that Tom said when he met that producer in Hollywood and the guy told him to go screw himself? There's no way that the guy was going to get the part. He said he got up from his chair and says, well, my boss always liked to hear bad news right away, right? And so he leaves the dining room, right? And then we know what happens after that. We need to get into the truth business in this country. We need that to spread. As soon as the people start getting the truth on a regular basis, you're going to find them to be far more amenable, far less stressed, less suicides, less drug use, less street fights, whatever, right? We're lying our way to perdition, and that's got to stop. And so let's have disclosure and see what happens.
All right, Steve.
I got to go to bed.
Absolute pleasure, and I will take you up if I'm ever running. I'll give you more notice though than 30 minutes, but
I can call any time. But we got to do a show. Let's make sure we do a show after the House hearing, because I intend to be there in the room, and particularly if there's two events, one in the House, one in the Senate. Let's try to do a show after that and discuss it. I may have some
absolutely.
Okay.
And do you anticipate that'll change from the 13th, or is that locked in stone?
Nothing is locked in stone these days, my friend. But that is what Nancy Mace has scheduled, and she's already given some interviews. And Gallaudet, I think, has indicated he may be speaking. And so I think once you get that in play, you don't want to change it. But so let's just assume October the 13th. I'm going to plan how I'm going to get in that room.
Is it October the 13th or November the 13th?
October. I'm sorry. November the 13th. November the 13th.
Okay.
Yes, of course. Plenty of time, but I'm going to be in that room no matter what it takes. If I have to dress up like a woman, that's what I'll do. Whatever, It's like Congresswoman. Oh, yes, come on in, sit right here. Whatever it takes, my friend. That's what you do if you're an activist.
That's why you make the big bucks, Steve. I know.
That's right, the big bucks, baby. All right. Until next time,
sir.
Brother.
Ad
Astra.
All right. Talk soon.
All right.